Good evening, Kirk here. I know it's been about 3 weeks since I did a teaser on a YouTube short that was saying, what's the smallest big bore handgun cartridge? Well, we're going to address that tonight. And it's actually kind of an interesting cartridge with a kind of interesting history. I tend to think of it as the itty bitty teeny weeny big bore handgun cartridge. And that cartridge, if you didn't guess from the trailer or the teaser where I said what is the smallest big bore handgun cartridge, well, the smallest one that I could find is the 41 Rimfire, otherwise known as the 41 Rimfire short. I mean, this thing's got a 40 caliber 130 grain bullet, and this one has a V head stamp, which was produced by CBC out of Brazil for Navy Arms back in the 1980s or so. And it's an interesting little round. It predates a lot of things. Remember, we had the bore through cylinder patent that Smith & Wesson had, so nobody really had any rimfire revolvers or centerfire revolvers of any kind other than Smith & Wesson at this time, at least in the United States. There was some stuff in Europe, some pinfire stuff and other things, but in the stuff made in the United States, this would not fit in a revolver that was in existence until after, I think, that patent expired in 1871. And so 1872 or so, you started seeing, say 71, 72, you started seeing bore through cylinder revolvers from people other than Smith & Wesson. So things changed. And it didn't take long for the centerfires to take over, because remember, the 1873 they came out with the Colt Peacemaker. But that's not our subject today. Our subject today is the 41 Rimfire. Where did it come from? Well, back in 1861 or so, National Arms Co. started fooling around with this round. And they came up with it, and in 1863 they brought out a little bitty rimfire Derringer that looked something like this. And they made that thing for, a few years, and they eventually got bought out by Colt. But, Colt came out with their Cloverleaf in what was it? 1871 to 1876, and then they moved on to some other revolvers. Remington, not to be outdone, since National Arms Co. came out with their little revolver, and the Colt revolver looks a little bit like this. But they came out with their, Remington came out with their Model 95, which is what, when people think of a Derringer, most people think of a cartridge Derringer, the over and under that looks like this. And you still see guns designed that look a lot like this nowadays. I mean, Bond Arms and several other people make them, in anything from 22 rimfire up to 45-70. So that type of design, excuse me, is still around. It was a utilitarian round that was not very powerful. When it first came out, it was black powder. Later on, it was smokeless. So the original black powder rounds, the advertised velocity of them was about 425 feet a second out of a handgun, which would give you about 52, 53 foot-pounds of energy, which is not a whole lot. But you think about it. This was pre-penicillin. So if you're sitting across a card table from somebody and somebody whips this thing out, or if you're a woman and you're being accosted by a man and you reach in your little handbag and pull this thing out, or you're a banker and you've got it stuck, got a little Derringer stuck in your vest pocket, because that's what you think of them as vest pocket guns, and shoot somebody at 10 feet with it, it's still got a 40 caliber bullet that weighs 130 grains, and it's probably going to penetrate something. And since there was no penicillin, and these things had wax-coated lead bullets that were, they're externally lubed, they're heel bullets like a 22 long rifle, so nobody wanted to get shot, because if you were nasty and dirty and got debris down in the wound and you got a secondary infection, then you might not make it very long. You remember during the Civil War, there was almost as many people killed by secondary infections as there was by military action. I mean, it was not uncommon for somebody to cut themselves or scratch themselves and get an infection and develop some kind of sepsis or gangrene or something, and just boop, because there was nothing to treat it with other than Listerine kind of stuff. And then sulfa drugs eventually came out. But anyway, I digress. Winchester Western made some ammo in it before World War II, and somebody tested some of those, and they got 530 or so feet a second, and that's like 80 foot-pounds of energy. And then the Navy Arm stuff, this was produced in 70s, 80s, 90s, probably the 80s. They tested some of those, and they found that they were going at 621 feet a second or so, which is 110, 111 foot-pounds of energy. So from 50 foot-pounds of energy to 100 foot-pounds of energy, you know, so that's enough to leave a mark. And, you know, okay, so you got your grandpa's 1910 Remington Model 95 over and under 41 Rimfire Derringer. If you could find some of the Navy Arms ammo, good luck, it'd work. But they didn't make it for all that long, and it's gotten really expensive. I saw a box online not too long ago for like $300 for 50 of them. So, you know, if you bought that so you could have some ammo to shoot in Granddad's, you know, Derringer, fine and dandy, but you're just not going to shoot it a whole lot because it isn't anymore. Now, here's something that's kind of interesting. HLE Books had a book, I think it's obsolete now, not online, but it was on reloading 32, 38, and 41 rimfire black powder cartridges. And what they did was they used these turn brass cases for them that had, where the head stamp is, they had it bored out so it would accept on the side a 22 rimfire blank. And so you would put the 22 rimfire blank in there, put some black powder in there, seat a healed bullet over top of it, and you could shoot it. Now, Dixie Gun Works purportedly, according to what I was looking online, said they had these cartridges, but they don't have them now. Deuaist Dens, the guy from over there on that YouTube channel, had a video about doing cartridges, reloading rimfire cartridges. I don't remember which one he was reloading. I think it was the 38. But he had a video. I'd have to go see if I can find it and link it to this video. But it showed how they were taking and using the 22 rimfire blanks with the cases that had been modified to be able to use the 22 rimfire blank. And then you put it in your Derringer or your revolver so that the blank was out where the firing pin could hit it, because remember, unlike a centerfire that would hit in the center of this, the priming compound is on the edge. It's an interesting cartridge. It survived. Now, granted that Navy Arms did make a repro of the ammo in more modern times. But after World War II, there weren't any guns being made for 41 rimfire and a lot of others. So things like the 41 rimfire, the 38 rimfire, the 32 rimfire, the 25 rimfires, the 25 Stevens. Everybody bemoaned the fact that the 25 Stevens went away. But all those rounds, and there were a lot of centerfire rounds too, a lot of black powder obsolete centerfire rounds that there was ammo being made for a market. But after World War II, when they had geared up for production for World War II, they never started back making it. So I think it's a really interesting round. It is in my mind, the itty bitty teeny weeny big bore handgun cartridge, because I can't find another 40 caliber cartridge that's smaller than this thing. And it had an interesting life so you'd say from 1862, 1863 when it first came out, up until when Remington quit making the Model 95 in around 1935. So that's a pretty good run for an itty bitty rimfire cartridge, considering the 41 Colt, 38 Winchester centerfire, the 44 Winchester centerfire, the 45 Colt, the 32 Smith & Wesson long, the 32 Colt, the 38 Smith & Wesson, 38 Special. All these other cartridges came out, centerfire cartridges that do things much better. And I mean, if you had a choice between having a 41 rimfire, a little bitty Derringer or revolver, or something chambered in 38 Smith & Wesson, like a pocket bulldog or something like that, I'd probably stick with the centerfire revolver over the Derringer. But I digress. I hope you've enjoyed this video on the itty bitty teeny weeny big bore handgun cartridge, the 41 rimfire, and I I got more things. Have a good day.